until she was about 15, and we found that she had been using heroin.
Yep.
And
that's a hard one even to say, huh?
Oh, it is. It's hard because it's the whole, it's exactly where you don't want to end up. She was using heroin and then later on fentanyl. And
God.
I mean, I think it escalated, and it was so young. And I mean, I was caught flat-footed. I mean, and I'm embarrassed to say that, but I was.
No experience with addiction. It's not like Uncle Fred is nothing like that, really.
No, we really
that's
don't.
the picture I'm getting on an average family. What part of what I'm getting is, it's not horrible. It's not traumatic. We're not living on the other side of the tracks. We're not super rich. Our kids aren't super spoiled. It's just kind of run of the mill, family. Everybody's present, and then it's out of nowhere. Is that right?
That's how it felt. I mean, that's definitely how it felt. I mean, I don't know that it was definitely. I mean, I think so. I mean, yeah, I'm going to say yes to that. I mean, that's a hard question for me. It really was. I mean, it's how it felt for me. It was. I didn't see it coming, and like I said, I'm embarrassed to say that, but the first time I found out, and I mean, I did the same thing everybody, that so many, I would imagine, well, no, this isn't right, not us, not her, not my daughter, not our family, and this is like some sort of mistake. And even if maybe this is sort of the way that it is, it's not completely the way that it is. It's not that bad. It's this is something that we can just turn around and correct very quickly, very quietly. And then you find out that that's maybe not the case.
Hello and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today Magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com, where first and foremost, we're a magazine of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself or a loved one, maybe you're in recovery a little while or a long, long time, you're going to find all kinds of topics related to addiction, recovery, really living a happy, successful life here at Recovery Today. My name is Rob Hanley. I'm the editor-in-chief of Recovery Today, and I've got another amazing interview set up for you today. My guest today is an author of the book Faces of Hope, Babies Born on 9/11, Faces of Hope 10 years later, Faces of Hope at 18, Caterpillar Kisses, Christmas Lights, The Novena, and the book The Believers. She lives with her husband, Peter, and her children, Jason, Natalie, and Trevor in Monroe, Pennsylvania. And she has just written a new book that's called About Natalie, a daughter's addiction, a mother's love, and finding their way back to each other. My guest today is Christine Naiman. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you for having me.
The first thing I'll start out with is, you've written a lot of books, and I want to jump into all of them. I am really intrigued by, Babies Born on 9/11. I think that's really kind of something that's very unique and interesting itself. But the first thing I'll kind of start out with is really kind of how sad it is that any mother, that there is a book, called A Daughter's Addiction, A Mother's Love, and having to find their way back. And when we had chatted, and we're going to shatter this whole piece for our subscribers and our readers here. They already know it, but unfortunately, you're far from alone. There's, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. Every addict and every person struggling has got a mother and a father, somebody that knows them. So I think it's sad that we actually have to have a book like this. It's probably not the best way to say it, but it's needed. We have needs for meetings, for treatment centers, and for help, because this is some of the realities and the pitfalls of life. So thanks for doing what you've done, and thanks for jumping on again.
You're welcome.
Beyond your short bio here, tell us a little bit about who you are, and how did you become an author, and give us a little bit of the background there.
Well, I mean, mostly and foremost, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a homemaker. But I've always had the passion to write. I've always enjoyed putting my words on paper. I've always enjoyed expressing myself, and I I like to reach out. I like to see where I am and think about what I have to say about it, and try to reach out to other people who are maybe going through the same thing that I'm going through. And I think probably all of my writing has really grown from those feelings.
What I like about writing is I love to have conversations. I always say that if you're flying across the country, you're either going to become best friends with me at the by the time we land, or you're going to tell whoever picked you up, oh my God, this person just chatted my ear off. I, I like communicating with each other and connecting tidbits of information, learning things from each other, passing that on to the next person. I kind of think that's really what the essence of life is. And I love to write because you can really express yourself kind of like more articulately. I always think about I'm kind of just having a conversation with somebody. So I guess before we jump into about Natalie, um, tell us a little bit about the first books here, Faces of Hope and Babies Born on 9/11. And let's kind of set a little bit of a foundation before we jump into the book about Natalie and her story and your story.
Okay, my book's Faces of Hope. Like you mentioned, babies born on 9/11, and then an update 10 years later, and then a final update when the kids were 18. I gave birth to my third child, my son Trevor, on 9/11, and 9/11, and it was a very unique day to have a baby. I mean, every day that anybody's having a baby is unique and special, but it was a little bit, it was unsettling. It was, I mean, it was hard because it was joyful for us personally, but it was hard to be too joyful considering what was happening to our country
Yeah.
and to our world. And there was a big mix of emotions. I was I was afraid. I didn't know, like everybody in the country, I was afraid. I didn't know what was next. I didn't know, how
Horrible.
far this was going to go.
Yeah.
And then I was obviously in the middle of labor and giving birth, so that's a unique,
Was it
hours.
before the first plane? Was it after the plane?
Well,
What was
it
it?
was all in the mix of it, which
Oh
was
my
the funny part
gosh.
about it, because I went to the hospital at 6 o'clock, and it was a beautiful day in Pittsburgh, just like it was a beautiful day in New York. And everything seemed, it was a Tuesday, and it was, a beautiful day. The sun was shining. It was a bright morning. It was a good day. It was a good day to have a baby. And as I got there and I got settled and I progressed, it was it became, there was something else happening. The energy of the hospital, and then you do have a TV in your room, and I had a TV, and I looked, and I think it was just like most people felt. I mean, well, it was an accident. The first plane was an accident, and it was
Horrible,
unsettling. It was
horrible, horrible
tragic.
accident, right?
Yeah,
Horrible accident.
horrible accident. It was unsettling. It was tragic. It was horrible. Um, and all the while I'm laboring. And then by the time the second plane hit, it was, more clear to me and to everybody else, obviously, that it wasn't an accident. Something else was going on. Now we live about 40 miles from Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and one of the planes went down in the field there.
That's the Let's Roll plane, right?
Yes. So the hospital was, I don't even know what to call it, but they were in a little bit of a standby kind of ish mode, because of being, they weren't so close, but they were close enough that I guess nobody knew what was going to happen next. And so like I said, I was laboring and going on with all of this, and all of that was happening on the TV. I have to say that I commend the hospital staff, because it was happening to all of them too. But it was hard to, they were focusing, on me and my care, and but it wasn't like you could ignore what was happening. And Trevor was born a little after 2, and that's when the attacks stopped. But it was unsettling, and I remember when the day had ended and I was alone later that night, 9:30, 10 o'clock. My husband went home to take care of our other 2 kids. My parents went home, and I was left only with myself and Trevor in the room alone. It really settled in. I really settled into it, and I was watching the news and thinking about how scary it was. And you want the world to be safe all the time. You feel
Yeah.
that, and but you really want the world to be safe for your kids. You think you want the world to be safe for yourself, and then you have a child and you just think, I've got this pure, perfect little thing, and I want to put it out into the world, and I want it to be nice to the world, and I want the whole world to be nice to them.
Yep.
And I felt very clearly that the world wasn't the safest place, and that kind of broke my heart. And but then thinking further into it, I remember thinking, even then, I'm not the only one who gave birth. I mean, 9/11 obviously isn't about me. It's not about my son, but I'm probably far from I'm not the only woman who ever gave birth on 9/11.
Yeah.
And the books grew out of my desire, again, to reach out.
So how did you contact, I don't, how, I'm already kind of starting to get the energy behind and who you are, like you like to write. And then I'm thinking, you wrote it to process this or something like that. It's so weird as you're talking about it. I'm kind of reliving where I was standing, the conversations. I've heard people talk about, when JFK, a little bit older, that when JFK was killed, they know exactly where all this kind of stuff.
Right.
We remember these landmarks, and they're burned into our minds, and the feelings, I think that we, I think like tuning forks, these things go into our spirit and then they're held there. You think about it and it kind of starts to ring again. So I kind of understand a little bit the whole idea, like the epiphany, like I'm not the only person. How did you, when you thought, like, I think there's got to be lots of others, I want to connect. How did that start? How did you even think, like, how did you find people that had babies on that? How did that happen?
Well, that was, it was nearly 20 years ago. So it was the old fashioned way. I barely knew how to turn on a computer, but my husband was a little bit better at it than I was. And I had the idea of reaching out to one family from each of the 50 states who had given birth on that day as a representative. So we did it the old fashioned way. We looked up actually birth announcements in each of the 50 states. And as soon as we found someone who published a birth announcement and the baby was born on 9/11, we did, again, old fashioned, we looked up the phone number. And back then,
directory assistance, you're calling
exactly
for Anchorage, Alaska. Yeah.
Exactly. Directory assistance. And I called and I explained who I was and what I was doing, and would they offer a photo of their baby and to represent the state. And remarkably, it was like 50 out of 50. Nobody said no, which was just heartwarming. Everybody said, oh yeah, count us in.
And did they feel like you felt, by the way? Was there anything would you remember anybody that said something completely different, or it was like, wow, that's like everybody else thought this way and you've got something totally different? Or
well, not really. We all collectively felt, but I think, similar ways. But I think, the people that were in New York, obviously, and the surrounding,
Sure.
the closer states, and people who had loved ones in New York or had connections to New York felt a little bit more, obviously a little stronger about it. But no, I think we all felt that it was a tough day to bring a baby.
Yeah, it's almost like having grandma die on your birthday or something like that type of a thing. It's
Yes.
such a landmark. So obviously you wrote that book, and then you thought, you know, I'd like to see how everybody else is, let's check in. So it's a
Right.
natural kind of byproduct to write the next book and the next book, because at first you're talking to the parents, and then eventually you're talking to the kids too, or is it all the parents? What about that?
No, actually, the 10-year update, I had planned on doing it, but it actually came about for a little bit of a sad reason. Baby Maryland was Christina Taylor Green. She was 9, and Christina Green was killed in the Gabby Giffords shooting in Arizona. And you just never.
Born on a terrorist attack, and then she dies essentially on a terrorist attack, a crazy person.
Exactly.
She was the astronaut, senator, congressman,
Exactly.
something like that. Yeah.
And she went to a shopping center to get her autograph and to take a picture.
God.
And unfortunately, she was killed there, and which absolutely, broke our hearts. And I wanted to check in with the other kids. I mean, it was just another example of how fragile life is, and never expect.
Dangerous. Life is
Yeah,
dangerous. Yep.
that's a better word. And I never thought that we would lose one of them. But anyway, we regrouped, and we dedicated the second book to Christina. And I checked in with all of the other kids. And for that book, because they were able to do a little bit, they were able to color pictures and offer some of their own thoughts. And that was the second book. And then the third book was a check-in when they were 18 and getting ready to be adults. And they wrote essays and letters and some poetry and different writings, and to the first responders that helped on 9/11.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I would guess with Trevor and the other 49 that every single time you write your birth date, somebody looks at it and says, wow, 9/11.
They do. They do. And getting back to your thought about everybody knows where they were on 9/11. That was part of the reason I wrote the book, because everybody shared, where were you? I was at work, I was at the gym, I was at church, I was wherever. And then I would say, oh, I was giving birth, and people would pause and say, oh, wow, didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
And the kids have expressed that they get reactions when people say, when's your birthday? And 9/11/01, even whether you go into the doctor's office or wherever, people are like, oh, wow, that's a little bit of a different birthday.
Really, really. So I kind of get a little bit of the transition, and then there's a whole bunch of other different books in between.
Mm-hmm.
Now we kind of come to the part of the story where, the music is a little bit more somber, and we start talking about Natalie, because, my goal and my intention on every kind of thing that we do in Recovery Today, number one, is to give hope. But part of that is actually to shatter the stigma that you're alone. And as I said at the very top, how unfortunate that it is that we have to write a book, that a book is, out there that can connect with other people about the mother and daughter relationship of a daughter or son that is that's an addict. So kind of walk us through, as whatever you can, or I'm sure you probably share quite a bit in the book, but take us through now, take us a little bit through the journey of Natalie and you know, who she is and you know, how we are where we are.
Okay. Well, I mean, I always like to start off by explaining who we are. I mean, we're very, very blessed, very fortunate as a family. I think we're just average. I mean, we're just your neighbors. We're your average everyday people. And I don't know why I feel the need to explain that. I think partly because people always think that, you know, you're so unique, and we're not. Natalie had an average upbringing, and she fell into the wrong thing way too early. She started taking pills from my parents, her grandparents,
How did
medicine
the
cabinet.
first one start? How does the first pill start?
You know what? Probably a better question for her than me, but I think just experimentation. I think she just wanted to know what
But they
it
don't
felt
find,
like.
she doesn't find her way to grandma's pill bottle when you're, you know, over for Easter or something like that and think, I think I'll take one of these, you know. Obviously, like I call this a socially contagious disease, really a socially contagious epidemic, actually. So like a friend probably gave her, you know, said, try this, it'll make you feel good.
Yeah, well, I think there was probably discussions about it. I
Yeah.
think there were probably discussions about it, and I think that wanting to experiment, and then it it takes hold. It increases. It turns into
Yeah.
something else and something else and something else, and until she was about 15, and we found that she had been using heroin.
Yeah.
And
That's a hard one
we
even to say, huh?
oh, it is. It's hard because it's the whole, you know, it's exactly where you don't want to end up. She was using heroin and then later on fentanyl, and
God.
I mean, I think it escalated, and it was so young. And I mean, you know, I was caught flat-footed. I mean, you know, and I'm embarrassed to say that, but I was.
No
She
experience with addiction. It's not like Uncle Fred is nothing like
No,
that, really. When
no,
you say,
we
because
really
that's the
don't.
picture I'm getting on an average family. What part of what I'm getting is, you know, it's not horrible, it's not traumatic. We're not living on the other side of the tracks. We're
Right.
not super rich. Our kids aren't super spoiled. It's just kind of run of the mill, you know, family. Everybody's
Mhm.
present, and then it's out of nowhere. Is that right?
That's how it felt. I mean, that's definitely how it felt. I mean, I don't know that it was definitely. I mean, I think so. I mean, yeah, I'm going to say yes to that. I mean, that's a hard question for me. It really was. I mean, it's how it felt for me. It was. I didn't see it coming, and like I said, I'm embarrassed to say that, but you know, the first time I found out, and you know, I mean, I did the same thing everybody, that so many, I would imagine, well, no, this isn't right, not us, not her, you know, not my daughter, not our family, and you know, this is like some sort of mistake. And even if maybe this is sort of the way that it is, it's not completely the way that it is, it's not that bad, it's, you know, this is something that we can just turn around and correct very quickly, very quietly. And then you find out that that's maybe not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and it's not something that at least our perception is not something that your friends rally around. It's not like you tell your friend that your child has got some kind of a serious illness and people bring casseroles and things like that.
Exactly.
It carries a lot of shame and a lot of different things like, where did I go wrong? How did this happen? You know, could I see the mile markers and a lot of things like that. It's really not it's really not the same things, not the same thing at all. So, what did you do? By the way, what was was it
Well,
rehab, treatment center? What was the next kind of steps?
well, we started off we first went directly into denial. And after we were kind of knocked around a little bit and had to face things, I don't know that we were as, I mean, we did what a lot, I don't know that we were as proactive as I think we should have been. But we did, outpatient rehab. We did some inpatient, escalated to inpatient rehab a couple times. Lots of doctors, lots of therapists, lots of, everybody, counselors, you name it. We sought out the helpers, as Mr. Rogers says. We, ran after them and reached out, and they reached back. I mean, they did. They reached back, and sometimes we made some progress, and sometimes we failed miserably and didn't make any progress.
So this is still in process. It's not, has she been in, this is an interesting interview because a lot of it are kind of, usually it's first person. Mm-hmm. And it's my story. And I want to be very respectful of her privacy and of yours. At the same time, right. I want to tell the story. So, mm-hmm. I guess, I was going to say, like, is she in recovery right now? Has it been a while? I know that, here's the main backdrop of contrast, though, is especially when you mention the F word, fentanyl. Mm-hmm. The real stark contrast of this, thank God she's alive.
Absolutely.
Because that's not a given. When you start talking about fentanyl, it is not a given, as somebody is listening right now, knows that too well. So, how is it currently? And are you, because we tell people a lot of, relapse is part of it, or it can be part of it. Everybody's path is different, but what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that she's doing well. She's definitely doing well now. It has been climbing on. And
she's 24, I think you told me.
24. Before. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. She's 24, and it's been a good year and a half, a little more. No fentanyl, no heroin. She goes to a clinic every day, and she's doing what she needs to.
Okay.
And I think it's a long process, but she's doing a good job, and she's making progress every day.
So you see a little bit of a light in the darkness, is that right? I mean, a year and a half is a pretty good amount of time.
Yes, for sure.
Out of curiosity, at 24, is it college? Is it a job? What is it? What does it look like?
Right now, it's well, with COVID, it's a little difficult, but she's in college, and she's taken some courses to get her feet wet again, and to decide her next step, what she'd like to make a career out of.
So how, in part of this, obviously you wrote this book. It's about, it's about the two of you. You have her blessing to write the book. Like, what were her thoughts on, like, I think I want to write a book about this. I've written all these other books. It helps me process, I'm kind of thinking, but like, how did that whole thing come about? Like, I want to write a book about our story. What was her reaction?
She's supportive. I mean, first of all, the first thing I did, everybody says, how did you start? And I started by getting her permission. And I said, the book, it's called About Natalie, but I have to say it's pretty much about Christine. It's 80% about me. It's about me, and it's the mom's journey. It's the mom's feelings. But I wanted it to be titled About Natalie because she is definitely the center of it. The neat thing about the book is I said to her, I'd like you to take part. And we weren't really sure how we were going to do that. I said, would you like to write a little bit and I'll write a little bit, and we, back and forth. And then we played with that a little while, and honestly, it just wasn't quite working. And she said, you know what I think I can do? I can give you some poetry. And I was like stunned at first. I said, poetry, really? And I thought, well, great, anything you want to offer. And she was able to offer, I think, I mean, I'm biased, I'm a mom, but some brilliant poetry to go in between the chapters of the book. So that was her contribution. And I think I think it's a great book because of that.
So I know why we wanted to tell this story and why this resonated deeply with me when we had spoke. And that is because, unfortunately, there's too many Natalies out there and there's too many Christines out there. And we want to just beat that, beat it into the ground, the fact that you are not alone. And you're not special, in terms of, and I mean, everybody's special, but as an outlier, type of a thing. This is the same, I believe, as my kid got a cold, my kid got a serious disease, my, and overall how you process this. But what is kind of the message of the book, and what do you want to do with it? I know that it's, I can assume it was therapeutic to write it, but like, what do you want it to do?
Well, I think I want to shatter certain things. I want to shatter that people feel that they're alone. I want them to know you're not alone. I want them to know that that was probably my biggest reason, because that was how I felt. And then I woke up one day and I thought, certainly that's not the case. And I want to help.
Unfortunately, it's not the case. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not the case. But I wanted to help in some way. I think that we all have a responsibility to, I mean, you can't always decide your journey. You can't always decide where you are planted at any particular moment, but I firmly believe that you can make good where you are. And I wanted other people to benefit from it. And I felt when people helped me, the people who were able to make me feel less alone is what really helped me. And I thought, if I can do that, if I can reach out and do that for someone else, I mean, if I can do it for just one person, I've accomplished it all.
Do you go to meetings too? Do you do like Al-Anon, for example? I mean, as long as
I do some things privately. I have to admit, I haven't been to Al-Anon. I do some things privately, which is a little, which is comfortable for me. Yeah, I mean, I think that I definitely seek my own care.
Yeah. And so you're your person and you process this your way. And I knew already that the book was therapeutic to write it and to kind of get all this, give birth, basically, is kind of what I'm thinking about. But what about your husband? I mean, since you lay your whole family out and you define yourself as a wife and a home, how does what was your husband's thoughts on this, and how has he processed it? Because everybody processes stuff differently.
Oh, definitely. Definitely he was supportive. Definitely he was supportive. He felt, and honestly, the book was therapeutic for me to write, but my dream is that it's therapeutic to read. And my husband and my sons were right. They were right out there. They felt that it was an important story to tell, because there is so much misunderstanding about it. And I think we all being people who, we just don't know an addict. We love an addict. We adore, we cherish our Natalie, and we wanted to express that and to almost explain what, you can be an addict and you can still be a beautiful, wonderful person. And that was part of the message.
So we're a magazine about hope. And again, that's kind of the whole underpinning of this whole, why we wanted to tell this story, to say, nope, you're not alone. There's unfortunately too many Natalies and Christines and everything else, like I said before, out there. But this is dark subject matter. Who wants to, it's not like your kid, won the 4-H or is a criminal
Right.
lot or some kind of, celebratory type of thing, other than the reality of is, hey, there's another day and anything can happen.
Right.
But in that kind of the midst of all that darkness and stuff like that, what were maybe what somebody should look for, what were some of the nuggets that moved you forward, that gave you hope, or somebody said something to you, or you had this kind of a thought? What do you say to the person when you're talking to the other Christine right now? Like, what do you tell them? What were some of the nuggets of hope that you saw that they might see? What can you give them to hold on to a little bit?
Well, I mean, that pointing out that there is always hope. There is always hope. There is always something to grasp onto. And I think you have to obviously take it one day, one moment at a time, but you have to count the blessings where you can and the progress where you can. And it's definitely a long journey, but there is hope to be found in every day. I'm big on love. I'm big on love. I'm big on hanging in there. And I mean, some days it's harder, and there were days when I was like, you know what, I'm done. I can't try any harder. But then that lasts about a minute. And
What were some, I like to say that, our words are so powerful,
mhm,
and, we just say random things, but the truth is, especially
right.
with young people and even old, but, you got much more of a runway as a young person in terms of what's in front of you, that you really can change the trajectory of somebody's life. That's why I think it's important to say things intentionally. I
Right.
don't like the words "you are" unless it's something that is positive,
Mhm.
to put onto somebody. You are this. Well, behavior is different than you are. But in terms of your journey and some of the darkness, what kind of little nuggets maybe somebody said to you, or that you learned or you read about addiction itself? Somebody might have said something that put you in a different, that they either gave you hope or
Mhm.
changed your thinking.
Oh, there were lots of random different things. I mean, one of the things that people told me that helped me get through was reminding me that reminding me that it was okay to take care of myself,
Yeah.
that I mattered too, because I think it's normal as a parent, um, or a loved one, when you have a big crisis happening. I think you feel like, okay, I'll live right after I fix this.
Hmm.
I will go out to dinner again once I fix my daughter. I'll take a bubble bath after my daughter's well again. I'll do I call it, like, living around the mess. I
Yeah.
think that people told me, people said to me, a doctor told me one time, he said, take care of you, because you're much better able to take care of her when you're taking care of you. And I thought that was something that granted permission to for me to take care of me in order to take care of her. I think the people who would say, tell me about Natalie, or let's talk about her, because it's that same old thing about people assume that you don't want to talk about them, that you don't want to say, I mean, that you don't want to say their name, you don't want to hear I mean, that kind of thing. But the people that helped me the most were the people who said, how's Natalie? Or tell me about Natalie. And I'm getting emotional with that, but those are the people that helped, whether they could relate or they couldn't relate. The people who said, how's she doing? The people that reminded me um, of, she's still there. Natalie's still there. Natalie, in all of her goodness and all her wonderfulness, is still she's still your baby. She's still your daughter. She's still all the good things we know. She's just maybe a little lost or a little sick right now. Those people reminding me that I wasn't the only one who saw her value.
That's good. That's really, really good. So the hope givers.
Yes.
The hope givers. So, it's funny because those that would be watching this, or that would be, reading through the magazine, it's all touched us some way or another. And unfortunately, actually, I was going to say, those that would watch this already have experience with this. It's for the person. I want to say, like, that's good for the person that is not dealing with this, to know, hey, say something to the person, ask their name, find out how it's going. The thing that's interesting is anybody that's going through this already knows that, because if you knew somebody else that was going through the same thing, isn't that what you would do?
It is what I would go
naturally,
all in.
right? Like naturally.
Yeah, I would, exactly. Naturally, I would go all in, and I would say, how are they?
Yeah.
And, people always say, how can I help? And I always say, well, you helped right by saying her name. And then, a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, goes a long way.
Yeah. What do you hope for her? I mean, obviously you hope for the best and all this stuff like that. Like, what do you hope for her? What she wants to do? What is she inspired by? I guess to talk about her for a moment again. Like, does she have any idea, like, what she thinks she might want to do? She wants to be a mom. She wants to be a doctor, an astronaut, president.
Oh, I think she definitely would like to be a mom. That's definitely a goal. And I want that for her, so much, but I don't know if I think she shares it, because she tries. She already does it, whether she realizes it or not. Natalie could help people who are like her. I think Natalie could be an amazing, she's got amazing compassion, and she is a very non-judgmental. She knows what it's like to be judged.
Does she share her own story? Does she share her own story too, readily, easily?
Yeah, she does. She does. To anybody who will listen, and she's her own. She's on her own journey to beat down the stigma of all of this and to help others.
Whenever we have such a thing as high school, and there's a gymnasium, and we're hopefully in some point in the future we're meeting again, and we're in groups. Does she have any aspirations to, like, talk to kids at high schools and things like that? Or
for sure, we both do. We both do. We always think that the most important person in the room is the person who can stand there and say, that was me then, and look at me now. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I think that's the whole idea of a book. Or I remember a lot of times, even in church, or I go to and they would give a sermon. I was like, oh, the phrase is, oh God, that was for me. And that's because it's about you, because it's also everybody else's story at the same time.
Right.
That's really, really, really unique. Well, what kind of, from your experience, for somebody that is maybe not as far down, or they're not out of the woods, what kind of nuggets of hope can you leave to somebody else that, maybe they're right now, when you say she's doing good, for somebody that says, God, my kid's not doing good, what do you tell that person?
Keep going, keep loving, keep fighting, which I know sounds all very generic, but trust your own heart. I think that every journey is so individual. I think that your loved one better than anyone does. And I think you've got to, take the advice, listen, be open to all of it. But I think you'll know what to do.
How do you as a mom, my sister was a heroin addict. She's passed away now. She'd been a heroin addict when I was a little kid, and she was
sorry.
Yeah, she was about 16. So this is way back, probably in I forget how old I was. It was probably in like the late 70s or somewhere around there, to date myself a little bit more. But and she had to go to a special school. There's no internet at that time. It was like school on the telephone.
Hmm.
And God, I remember all the fights in the house and just the
Right.
craziness type of stuff, that just
Right.
chaos that was there. And she lived, many years, but she struggled for a lot of years and everything. But I remember talking to my mother. My sister, by that time, it got to her, probably her 40s,
Uh-huh.
and she still struggled. And
Hmm.
it wasn't like she was on heroin, but she was alcoholic, and
Right.
full blown married alcoholic. Great guy. When she was sober, she was one for a year or
Right.
two. She was wonderful. Didn't
Right.
work any steps, I don't think, whatsoever. Just
Hmm.
probably dry drunk, as they say. But I remember my mom, like, she'd steal from my mom, and my mom would give her money, and my mom bought her a little apartment, kind of a condo, and she did that because she didn't want her to be on the street, right?
Right. Hmm.
And I remember my mom saying, like, it's such a hard thing, because she'd say, like, if I don't do this, she'll be on the street. And so you struggle between, like,
Right.
am I enabling this? Am
Hmm.
I making what are your thoughts on the tough love side of, like, no, I'm sorry, but
Right.
if you're going to be on the street, or whatever it is, how do you, as a mom, that's almost impossible, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes I hesitate to bring the tough love angle up. I do not think I'm the best example of tough love. It's not in my nature. Not that I haven't been pushed. You said about the struggles in the house and the fights and all of this. I mean, I've definitely been at times a different person than I ever thought I would be or wanted to be. Said things and done things, and acted in a way. But I I'm more of a love mom than a tough love mom. I don't. Somebody told me one time, you have to do what you can live with, and that's I've always remembered. I've always remembered that. And I have a friend who is a former ER doctor, and I was struggling with her, and I was telling her that this professional and that professional people were, well, throw her out and do this and do that, and she'll, if you throw her into the deep end, she'll swim. Um, and I was grateful, because one of the things she said to me was, that may work, that may not work, but she said, you have to remember that you love her, and you've got to factor that in to your decisions.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
for your
always
own good. I'm doing this for your own good.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm like your mom. I mean, I haven't bought a condo just yet, but I could see putting a down payment on one, because I always say, you know, maybe I shouldn't say, I'm going to say it, no matter how this turns out, one of the memories that Natalie's not going to have, or one of the memories that I'm not going to have, when we get to it's not going to, she's not going to remember her mother turning her back on her.
Yeah.
And that's just,
So I got a really tough one. Okay.
okay.
And I'll tell you where I'm going with it. With this one thing is the story of the prodigal son.
Right.
So in my own case, not to, and it's not nearly as dark, but there's some pretty dark stuff earlier on. Is I've got two kids, and my son is now 19. And when he was about 15, they're wonderful when they're little kids and you're Superman and stuff like that. They get to about 11 and they realize, there's some chinks in the armor here. And
Right.
then now, God, from the internet and everything else that's there, all of these external influences that can come in, it pops a bubble about dad's really not cool, mom's not cool, and
Mm-hmm.
all of these kind of stuff. And he had a lot of challenges. He wouldn't mind my saying, when he was about 15. And now he's doing really good. You know, he's on,
Thank God.
for him, he actually, his journey was, you know, he found the Lord, and he's very much into developing his relationship with God. And I don't know that he actually, for him, he was just a real problem. I know, you know, I said, look, man, you got the gene. I'm pretty sure you
Right.
got the gene, okay? Because there's me, there's your uncle, there's your
Mhm.
aunt that was a hair, you know, there's
Right.
you know, and your ADD, all the stuff, okay?
Mhm.
And you might be a good idea if you just chose a life of sobriety and whatnot like that. And we'll see.
Right.
You know, he's an adult now. He can make his own decisions. He doesn't live with us anymore. He moved across the country. But God Almighty, man, he was a problem kid from
Mhm.
the time that he could walk. Okay,
Right.
and again, he wouldn't mind my. It's just the truth.
Mhm.
He was a handful. I was always getting called to the office. And can you please just not have me get called to the office when you're in second grade and third grade and fourth grade? In contrast, okay, his younger sister, who's now 17, from the word go, was just zero problems, no problems,
Right.
compliant. You know, I'm still amazed in contrast, and might make him feel bad if he were to see this. But again, it's part of like, I've never heard her say a cuss word, you know, like it's
Right.
always been like perfect grades. And I'm like, whose kid are you?
Right.
I don't even know whose kid. Thank God that the God knew we could not take, and I adore, die for my son.
Of
We
course.
couldn't take two of him, you know, thank
Right.
God that we had.
Yes.
So, but it's unfair. That's why I bring up the prodigal son story. And I've
Mhm.
had real conversations with my daughter about the whole idea that there's so much focus and so much attention, and
Yes.
he's bad, right? And
Yes.
yet he's bad, and I'm walking the line over here. And you know, what about
What
me? Have
about
you
me?
thought, is there a
What
book
about me?
coming that's you know, going to be, you know, it's going to be, you know, what about, you know, about Jason or about Trevor? What are your
Right.
thoughts on those? How do you process that kind of, and how do you have those conversations? I know the conversations I had. What do you do with the other kids?
Probably, I mean, without being right there, I bet we've had the same conversations because I've had those. I mean, it's amazing how similar we are. And I'm sure similar to so many other people, but yes, I've got my Trevor, who is the equivalent of your daughter. And when you know, I swear, as soon as we fix Natalie, I am going to start paying attention to you.
Maybe
As
it's
soon
because we didn't pay attention that they turned out to be. No, yeah, it's got to be some genetic thing. Like literally, it's like,
yeah.
whose kid are you?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we fix Natalie, and I feel bad because I feel that Trevor being younger, I felt that he lived under a little bit of a cloud. You know, it wasn't, we weren't an unhappy household, but we weren't the happiest household because we were too busy trying to fix, you know, the other things that were broken. I, I mean, my
Do they resent her,
conversations,
by the way, without giving too much of their mail? Do they
you know
resent her?
what? Thank God they don't.
Hmm.
They adore her, and they are her fierce defenders and protectors, and I love that. And that describes, hopefully, you know, the family that we are. Um, I think that both of them um, are definitely sympathetic, empathetic, more so than they would be without this being our journey. And I sort of see that maybe their leanings with career choices are to be helpers.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
I think maybe because they have loved a person who has struggled.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so grateful because for my son, he's there. My kids, my son and daughter are completely opposite. But
Mm-hmm.
my son is so you know, turned on in the Lord and reading his Bible all the time,
Good for
you know,
him.
we have these conversations, and he's like, God told me to do this, and it's not, you know, totally wacky kind of things. And
Right. Right.
And he gives me advice. I would really advise you to like pray about, we're thinking about moving, and I'd really think you should actually ask God like where he thinks that you should move to and all this stuff. And now it's this interactive conversation, and I love you, and he calls, and so
Oh,
he's doing really, really good. On the other
true
hand,
story.
my daughter's very goal oriented and on a great path. I hope one day they kind of reconcile. I think she's actually, I don't know what it is. I think that she's probably mad at him, about not, I
Right.
don't know, but he's
Right.
trying to reach out to her and to say, I can't reconcile the past. I can be here in the future, and things of this nature. But there's so many interactions because everybody's connected. So there's one, what does it do to the marriage? What does it do to the other kid?
Oh,
What does it do,
absolutely.
you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I talk a lot about that in the book. I think what it does to a marriage. I mean, my goodness. And I think it's kind of as simple as you stick together and you fight, or it destroys you, because it can very easily destroy you because you're both in so much pain. It's hard to be there for each. It's hard to be there for each other, but we developed a lot of strength in being there for each other, and we took turns carrying each other.
Is that the blessing? One of the questions I wrote down before we were going to talk is I wanted to know what joy or what blessing has come from this. I don't want to just say, oh, every cloud's got a silver lining, but like, I do think that there are things that you would not know, that positions, opportunities, people that enter your life as a result of the dark stuff and of the challenges. What kind of blessings have come from this that might not have ever come if this hadn't happened?
Well, the people, and I would include you as one of them. I have met some just amazing people that I never would have met. I always say that, even, your children definitely have you, good times, bad times, or whatever. They have you mixing with people you would have never met, whether it be the parents of their friends. I mean, they're not people that you'd run it, and then they become some of your best friends. And
yeah,
I would have to say, even though we're there for unhappy reasons, we've met some amazing physicians, some, the doctors, the nurses, the therapists, the caregivers. I've met them, and like I said, we're not there for the happiest reason, but they have been just angels. I think it's those that's been one of the blessings, and I'm hoping that getting ready, writing the book, I hope that it's therapeutic for someone else. I hope that part of the proceeds of the book are going to go back into healthcare, and
cool.
I want that. I want it to go back in, and my dream is that I can build something, or I can contribute to the building of something that can help.
What are your thoughts? I'm going to bring it in for a landing, but this is an interesting one because we've used words like blessing, and I throw out a Bible, the Prodigal Son story. And for those who don't know the Prodigal Son, there was a bad son and used all the money on whores and drugs of the day and whatnot. And then he blew his inheritance, and the other son that never did anything bad was waiting around, and the bad son comes back and the dad throws a party, right? And the other son's like, what about me, man? Like, I never have done anything.
Been here the whole time.
Like, hey, you're going to inherit all of this. Like, that's kind of some of the conversations I've had with my daughter about it. But you kind of throwing out some of these spiritual kind of nuggets. And I've laid it out there in more recently in more recent interviews. I think personally, people don't have to adopt this same philosophy, but I think that it's not like necessarily the disease. I mean, it is. I don't think that obviously it's not the person. I think honestly that there's like spiritual warfare that's going on. I mean, people talk about, I've even heard Russell Brand, who it's not like he's a Christian evangelist or something like that, talk about this as a spiritual disease. But I really do believe that there are external evil forces that want to break up the family unit. Because I'm thinking like, thank God you didn't divorce, right? And because then what's up for your other kids? and they never, and then it's split. And it's just, I think that it's the whole idea to come in and to divide, also to tell us you're alone, or there's nobody else, or this is shameful. It's all to cut off and to separate. What are some of your thoughts kind of on the, I don't know, am I totally out there? Are we on the same page there? What are your thoughts on that kind of a thing? Like there's, I'm going to say the devil or whatever it is, there's evil forces that are coming to try to break everything up, not just for her, but they want the whole family.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've thought about that because, when you, the first problem is probably trying to make sense of it because that's, there is no sense to be made. You go through all of that. Why us?
A lot of praying, I assume too, right?
Oh gosh, a lot of praying. I mean, that's one thing that, it's a constant, but it's something that to grab onto. And I am a very, I'm a spiritual person, and I that helps me. That is, like I said, maybe it doesn't help everybody, but it's one of the things that the thing that I rely on most heavily. It helps me. As far as, dividing us and conquering us, I think it's maybe it starts to, and it's how you push back against that. You have to say, what, no way. Yeah. No way. You're not taking her down or us down or our family down. Even
if I'm wrong and it's not spiritual forces or whatever, I still do think it is helpful to identify in your mind that there's some, even if you were to say it's a fictitious attacker, I think that actually looking at it that way, maybe be it the disease itself or something like that, but then to embody it in some way and say, it's not gonna, no, you're not gonna, you're not gonna break us up. You're not gonna ruin us. You, to where it's a separate, I don't know. It's just kind of my own idea there. Well, how does anybody connect to you? Where do they get, let's promote the book, like show all that stuff. Like how do people get back at, do you ever talk to other Christines that are out there, daughters, wives of mothers of Natalies? What else do you do?
Well, I would love to connect with people. I mean, that's my dream. My dream is I'd love to help somebody, but I'd like to help many people. ChristineNaiman.com. Okay. That helps.
So Christine with a CH, right? My wife is Christine with a K. So yeah. CHRISTINE. Naiman is NAMAN.com, right? We'll put it all in here. It'll be in the future and everything. Okay.
Sure. They can reach me there. That's all in the back of the book. There's an email in the back of the book. I'd love to hear from people. If you reach out, I promise you, I will reach back. I'd love to hear other people's stories. Like I said, the book can be bought, comes out May 4th. It can be pre-ordered now. It can be bought anywhere books are sold, Amazon. And
on Amazon pre right now. Is it pre on Amazon? Yeah. And this is not, by the way, you're not self-published. You actually have a publisher, right?
I do. Yes. Health Communications in Boca Raton, Florida was, and a shout out to them because they are just amazing people doing what they do and publishing what they publish for all the right reasons. And the fact that they took me, a nobody, and embraced me and said, this is an important story. Was again a blessing, and part of the proceeds are definitely going back into helping someone else.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So if you are another Christine, or you have a Natalie or a Johnny or whatever it might be of your own, you can get back to Christine at ChristineNaiman.com. That's ChristineNaiman.com. Get her book. It's obviously from the interview, you're going to find nuggets of hope. You're going to have your story. And I do believe that I think the purpose of a lot of these things is to give confidence to other people and to, I think the reason that we have trials is so that we can go through them and give confidence to other people, and that we can connect with each other. And that's kind of what I think the blessing in some of these things are.
For sure.
Well, I thank you for your time. I thank you for writing the book. I really enjoyed meeting you when we first spoke. And as I said, just a story that we wanted to tell and share and connect with as many people as we can. So thank you for jumping on with me and, sharing yourself.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Well, this has been another an unfortunate interview that we have this subject matter, but I enjoyed the conversation, and this is what life is with Recovery Today magazine. Thanks so much, and this is a wrap.